To see again one of the greatest cricketers in history, we must go back to the turn of the century, when the glittering Victorian age was drawing to a close. As one reign came to an end, so did another. On the playing fields of England, the fabulous Dr. W.G. Grace, the grand old man of cricket, approached the end of his long innings, an innings stretching over 40 years. As W.G. took his place among the immortals, a new star arrived. Soon the county grounds of England were ringing with another name, John Berry Hobbs. A new master came to replace the old. Turned down by Essex, but welcomed by Surrey, the young Jack Hobbs became the idol of Surrey, the toast of England. Hobbs was the man in the news, the bridge over which cricket of the golden age of grace moved into the 20th century. It was at the Oval that Hobbs's promise ripened into genius, that the first of his 61,000 runs and 197 centuries flowed from his bat. He became associated with famous partners like Andy Sandon, the man who took over from the Surrey and England star, Tom Hayward. These were rich days indeed for English cricket, but Hobbs dominated them, and he became known as the Master. The great Hobbs was every inch a cricketer, the complete cricketer, admired and respected in two hemispheres. His greatness cannot be measured by statistics alone. He was the master of every stroke on every kind of wicket. Watch now in slow motion the great player at practice. See how quickly yet calmly Hobbs picked his stroke. He always seemed to have plenty of time to play his shot, the mark of the true master. No bowler could disturb this poise, not even on an Australian sticky dog. But vanity was not in his nature, and he strove always for perfection. In the field, he became one of the finest cover points the game had ever known. On one Australian tour alone, he ran out 15 batsmen. Although Hobbs never chased records, the records chased him. Come now to Taunton for Surrey's match against Somerset. It was 1925, Hobbs's greatest year. Already he had scored 125 centuries. He needed one more to equal Grace's record. As he came out on this hot August morning, he was 91 not out. He needed 9 runs to catch up with history. And this, so his contemporaries said, was the only time they saw a nervous Hobbs. A glance at the scoreboard, and there it was, 9 runs wanted to catch W.G. Then in the first over, Robertson Glasgow bowled a no ball, and Hobbs hit it for 4. Slowly, ever so slowly, the runs came. There must be no mistake this time. For weeks, Hobbs had been followed by ill luck on all the cricket correspondents. All eyes were on him now. Hobbs reached 99. Jim Bridges bowled, and the slow-motion camera captured an historic moment. That was the run which gave him his century and equalled Grace's record, one of the greatest moments in the life of Jack Hobbs. When the applause died down, the Surrey skipper, Percy Fender, brought out a glass of ginger ale, or was it champagne? That same year, 1925, Hobbs scored 16 centuries, topped the batting averages and scored 3,000 runs. And the record-breaking bat was insured for £200. Just as he was supreme in county cricket, so he was supreme in test cricket. Altogether, Hobbs played in 61 tests. In the 1920s, Australia's batting was a mighty weapon, but so was England's. And the crowds flocked to watch their cricket heroes. This was Lord's 1926. The great Hobbs and Rhodes opening partnership had ended. A new one had not long begun, perhaps the greatest of all time. Thousands were there to judge. England's team included Patsy Hendren, Jack Hobbs, skipper Arthur Carr, Percy Chapman, who took over from him, Bert Strudwick, Harold Larwood, Maurice Tate, and a Yorkshireman fairly new to Test cricket, Herbert Sutcliffe. The openers were Hobbs and Sutcliffe, a new firm which became the Old Firm, a partnership which became the greatest the world had ever known. Together, they scored 182, and Hobbs got another century. Again, the slow-motion camera captured the majesty of Hobbs. The 1920s were dominated by Hobbs and Sutcliffe. They took part in 26 three-figure partnerships, 7 exceeding 200. They became the scourge of Australian bowlers on any and every type of wicket. Moments like this were rare indeed. There were no finer judges of a quick single. They had no need to call, they reacted instinctively. And playing with the master, the talented Sutcliffe too blossomed into greatness. Each of them was great in his own right. When one went, it was only half of the bowler's battle. For while they were great partners, they were also great individuals. As the years mellowed but never dimmed the lustre of Hobbs, Sutcliffe carried on. But in the season of 1930, the great partnership came to an end. Hobbs played in his last Test series. He was 47, and he had scored more runs against Australia than any other batsman. Once again, crowds flocked to see him, this time to say their farewell. And the photographers followed him round to record the present for the future. The youth, marked by maturity, had given way to maturity endowed with youth. The fans could hardly realize that it was the end of a great partnership. The enthusiasm was never greater, although this year England lost the Ashes. For the crowd were paying their tribute to a complete cricketer whose modesty matched his greatness. The day came when Hobbs and Sutcliffe were together for the last time, an occasion when sadness mingled with nostalgia. The years passed and Hobbs returned to the scene of his early triumphs, this time as umpire. But it brought him a moment of glory as he met King George VI. Later he was to meet his monarch again in 1953 when he received the accolade of knighthood from the Queen. At 70, Jack Hobbs became Sir Jack Hobbs, the first professional cricketer to be knighted. He brought to his entire life the same dignity and modesty he'd always shown on the field. Whenever and wherever cricket is played, the name of Jack Hobbs will live.